The cry slices the room open before anyone speaks. Fluorescent lights hum. A heart monitor ticks like a metronome counting down to confession. Sterling Cole stops in the doorway of Lenox Hill Hospital, breath snagging in his chest as Nia Hart lifts the newborn closer. It's the color that undoes him. Not illness. Not danger. Truth, undeniable, living, looking back at him with a shade his PR teams can't dilute and his legal teams can't bury. For a man who turned perception into currency, this is the one currency he can't control. A nurse shifts on squeaking shoes. Sir, do you want to? Nia doesn't wait for permission. You told me to fix it, she says, voice raw from labor. I couldn't. 2 words crash through Sterling's skull, fix it. He hears his own voice from months ago in the laundry room of his Fifth Avenue penthouse, the chemical sting of bleach, towels slipping to the floor, Nia's hand pressed low against her abdomen while he stared at quarterly projections on his phone. He had been efficient. Distant. Cruel. Now the consequence breathes. The baby hiccups, fists unfurling, mouth seeking warmth. Sterling takes 1 step forward, then another, as if the linoleum were a lake he might fall through. The nurses hold their breath. Nia doesn't. She's yours, she says. His throat tightens. Who knows? Enough. That single word feels like a judge's gavel. Enough for the story to grow legs. Enough for the lobby downstairs to fill with cameras. Enough for Wall Street to sniff blood before the opening bell. Next twist hits harder, subscribe before you miss it. Sterling drags a chair closer and sits like the air got heavy. He can close a deal in Chicago with a handshake, move a market in Los Angeles with 1 quote, but he has no language for this. The baby yawns, a tiny, solemn V of a mouth. He can't look away. Nia steadies her daughter and studies him. People will say I trapped you. They'll say uglier things about her. You could quiet some of it, not all. Some. Some isn't enough. Some is how change begins. Her words land and stay, heavier than any brief his lawyers ever slid across a table. He thinks of the speeches he's given at scholarships his foundation funds in Atlanta, of the careful photographs with smiling kids he would never meet again. He thinks of the family chapters his mother skipped, the silences his father codified. He thinks of how many doors money opened, how many truths it locked behind them. Footsteps scrape outside. A voice, half whisper, half broadcast, leaks through the door. Sources confirm Sterling Cole is inside Lenox Hill, developing now. Secrets spread fast, subscribe so you're not last to know. Sterling's phone buzzes. Priya Shah, his COO, Bloomberg wants comment. Board on standby. Lobby packed. Another ping, rumor about falsified guidance is trending. We need you. He types, prepare this, I have a daughter. Use those words. His thumb hovers. He does not press send. Nia watches the unsent message glow and fade. You're afraid of losing everything. He meets her gaze. I built everything to keep this from happening. Maybe that's the problem. The nurse adjusts a drip and slips out, leaving the quiet thick as steam. Nia looks worn to the bone but anchored. The baby's breathing steadies, the tiny chest lifts and falls with an authority that mocks Sterling's hesitation. If this scares you, subscribe for the truth first. He reaches out, hand suspended above the baby like a confession waiting on a tongue. The first touch is barely contact, his palm a breath over warm skin, and still it detonates something he thought he'd welded shut. Shame flickers. Awe follows. Strategy tries to muscle through both and fails. I'll provide, he says, defaulting to power. Support. A trust. Whatever it takes. No. It hits harder than a lawsuit. No. Not hush money. Not a settlement. Not your brand of mercy. Her voice thins, but the line holds. Tell the truth. Mean it. The monitor ticks. A helicopter knifes past toward Roosevelt Island. Outside, a meal cart rattles over a metal threshold, a reminder that the world keeps moving even when rooms decide a man's future. He tries another path. Did you tell them my name? I told the truth, she says. Your name told itself. The door opens an inch. A young nurse peers in, eyes wide. Mr. Cole, cameras have blocked the elevators. Security wants to route you through the service corridor. She glances at Nia, at the child, then back to him. It's intense. Let them wait, he says, surprising himself. Nia studies him, measuring the distance between words and spine. If you walk out there without owning this, they will define you. If you own it and don't live it, they will bury you slower. He almost laughs. Not from humor, recognition. He's navigated shareholder revolts and antitrust rumors. He's never had to navigate his own reflection. Stay with us, subscribe before the fallout begins. He looks at the baby again and sees echoes, his father's stubborn jaw, his grandmother's soft eyes from a photograph that never hung in the living room. The kind of family picture that gets moved to a closet when guests come over. He wonders how many decisions were made in whispered rooms to keep this night from existing. He pockets the phone. For a breath, he lets the world outside cease to exist. Nia adjusts the blanket and winces. He leans forward, instinct, then stops short, remembering boundaries she had to enforce because he didn't. Tell me her name, he says. Nia hesitates, then gives it. It lands like a bell. He repeats it, quietly, letting the syllables settle into him like a sentence he finally agrees to serve. Another buzz. Priya again, media on every entrance. Statement drafts ready. His finger floats. This time he types, draft no spin. 4 words, I have a daughter. He hits send. A simple text, but it feels like pushing a boulder into a river and letting the current show where it belongs. Nia exhales, tired, not impressed. Words are scaffolding, she says. You still have to build something honest. What if honesty destroys everything? Then it wasn't worth saving. He flinches. It's not the cruelty of the line, it's the accuracy. He imagines the top floor of Caldwell Tower, the glass conference table, the board's faces arranged like knives. He imagines the market open, the chart cracking down the screen, the feet of pundits carving him to pieces. He imagines his mother seeing the headline and choosing between pride and choosing fear, because it's familiar. The baby stirs, seeking, then settles again. The smallest life in the room is the only one not panicking. If you don't subscribe, say why below. He catches himself thinking it like a reflex and despises the habit, until he realizes the engagement isn't about numbers today. It's about forcing the audience to choose a mirror, too. He stands. His knees feel less certain than his voice has ever sounded. The door glows a harsh white in the corner, a rectangle cut out of compromise. He takes one step, then stops. I will face them, he says. But I won't trade you for applause. Don't promise me, Nia answers. Promise her. He turns to the crib, and the promise finds him before he knows he's making it. Not a speech. Not a performance. A simple vow that lodges deeper than all the contracts he's ever signed. The young nurse returns, cheeks flushed. Mr. Cole, they're chanting your name downstairs. Security needs a decision. Route me through the lobby, he says. Her eyebrows jump. Sir. I'm not sneaking out the back of my own life. Nia's face doesn't soften, but something inside the room does. He reaches for the handle. The metal is cool, real, indifferent to reputation. Would you forgive him? Comment your verdict below. He opens the door. Sound slams in, radio crackle, hurried steps, the distant buzz of cameras arranged like a firing line. A security guard in a navy jacket flanks him, murmurs, "Service corridor is safer, Mr. Cole." The lobby, Sterling repeats. They move. The hallway is a tunnel of linoleum and nerves. Nurses curve around him with practiced grace. A janitor pauses, stares, looks away. Two interns whisper, not cruel, curious. He catches his reflection in a window, expensive suit, bare hands, eyes older than yesterday. He thinks of the headlines they'll write and the facts they'll miss. He thinks of the baby's breathing, steady as a drumbeat he needs to follow or be drowned by. At the elevator bank, security hesitates. They're right outside the doors. Once we open them. The doors part. Light breaks across polished floors and glossy plants. The lobby is a hive, microphones raised, phones filming, questions ricocheting off marble. For a heartbeat, he nearly steps back. He steps forward. A dozen voices collide. "Mr. Cole, is it true? Do you deny? Are you the father? What about the accounting story?" He raises a hand once. Not the corporate wave. A stop. The buzz collapses into a tense hush hungry for meat. "I have a daughter," he says. 4 words. No buffer. No lawyer. No adjective to sand the edges. They hit the room like a dropped pane of glass, shattering, then silence before the first shard hits tile. He doesn't run. He doesn't add conditions. He doesn't sell a narrative. He says her name. He says Nia's name. He says, "I failed them," and feels the building absorb it the way hospitals absorb prayers and bargains. He hears a few gasps. He hears a pen scratch fast like it can catch sincerity if it moves quickly enough. He hears his heartbeat settle into a rhythm that might be bravery or might be shock. Next twist hits harder, subscribe so you don't miss the fallout. A question flies, what about the fraud allegations? And he doesn't flinch. "I'll answer those, too," he says. But not by hiding behind walls. He looks straight into the nearest lens. "You can film this part, I won't bury my family to save my stock." A murmur rolls through the room, part disbelief, part recalculation. The security guard leans in. "We should move," he whispers. Sterling nods. He turns, and through the glass he catches the city outside, taxis threading Lexington Avenue, sirens combing uptown, a cyclist banking hard to avoid a delivery truck. New York keeps its pulse, indifferent to a billionaire's confession. He takes one last look toward the hallway that leads back to Nia and the child whose presence has already redrawn the map. He walks on, knowing every step is a headline he'll have to live up to. If you won't subscribe, explain why below. Be honest. The elevator doors yawn open, and the sound hits Sterling Cole like a tidal wave. Shouts, camera shutters, the whine of microphones scraping forward. The marble lobby of Lenox Hill Hospital has become a theater, and he is both the villain and the main attraction. "Mr. Cole, is it true? Are you acknowledging the child? What will this do to Caldwell Industries?" Questions slam into him from every angle. He straightens his suit jacket, not because he wants to, but because the instinct to project control is a reflex he can't kill. Flashbulbs explode, burning afterimages across his vision. His security detail pushes back, but the wall of reporters surges like a mob hungry for blood. He raises a hand. The noise falters, but the silence that replaces it is worse. Every lens, every eye is trained on him. He feels the air thicken. "I have a daughter," he says again, voice carrying against marble and glass. No embellishment. No denial. No lawyered phrases. The room freezes, then erupts. Cameras jostle, phones lift higher, the hum of a live broadcast echoes in the air. His words race down cables and satellites before he can take them back. In less than a minute, living rooms across the country will see a billionaire unravel under the brightest lights. You're watching his empire bend in real time. Stay here, subscribe now, because what comes next will decide if it breaks. Security hustles him toward the revolving doors, but outside, the storm is worse. News vans clog the curb, satellite dishes angled skyward. Protesters who must have mobilized within minutes shout from behind barricades. Some hold signs, liar, fraud, hypocrite. Others yell his name like an accusation. A reporter shoves a microphone close. "Mr. Cole, how long have you been hiding this?" He doesn't answer. The question slithers inside him, though, because it isn't about months, it's about decades of silence inherited like a family heirloom. By the time his black sedan slides into traffic, Sterling's pulse is still drumming in his throat. The tinted windows shield him from flashbulbs, but not from the truth. Back at Caldwell Tower, the boardroom is waiting. The directors are already assembled, suits crisp, expressions sharper than scalpels. Screens flicker with live feeds of his face at the hospital, captured mid-confession. "Do you realize what you've done?" one demands, voice brittle. "You've tied this company to your scandal," another hisses. "The market will bleed in the morning." Sterling stands at the head of the glass table, his reflection fractured across its surface. For years, this room bent to him. Now it feels hostile, the air heavy with disapproval. "I told the truth," he says simply. "That's not a strategy," the chairman snaps. Sterling leans forward, voice low but steady. "It's survival." His words hang there, strange in a room accustomed to numbers and forecasts. The directors don't want survival, they want dominance. And dominance can't exist with cracks in the facade. One slides a folder across the table. Inside, a contingency plan. Removal clauses. Succession drafts. They are already preparing to cut him loose. If they can push him out this fast, imagine how quickly they'll bury the whole story. Subscribe now, so you see the parts they don't want shown. Sterling doesn't touch the folder. His phone vibrates. A single message from Mia, "She's sleeping. I named her after my grandmother." He closes the folder instead. "I'm not stepping down." The room stiffens. A director scoffs, "Then be prepared to watch this company collapse." Meanwhile, Mia sits in the hospital room, the city's noise muffled by concrete walls. She strokes her daughter's tiny hand, watching fingers curl around her own. The hospital TV hums faintly in the corner, replaying Sterling's words on loop. "I have a daughter." The anchor calls it a scandal. The panel debates whether he'll survive it. Mia knows they don't care about the child, only the fallout. She mutes the screen and hums softly, rocking the newborn. The baby stirs, unaware that her existence has set fire to boardrooms and news cycles. If you think the child should matter more than the headlines, stay with this story. Subscribe, don't let her be forgotten in the noise. Mia closes her eyes for a moment, exhaustion rolling over her. She thinks of Atlanta, of the life she left behind. She thinks of the laundry room where her world splintered. And she wonders if Sterling has it in him to be more than the mask he wears. Night in Manhattan doesn't quiet the city, it amplifies it. Neon signs glare down at traffic. News tickers scroll headlines in relentless red. Sterling Cole admits to secret daughter, market reacts. Sterling sits in the back of his sedan, staring at the blur of lights. His phone won't stop buzzing. Investors want reassurances. Talk shows want appearances. Even old friends text condolences that read more like opportunism. He ignores them all until a new message appears. Unknown number. One line, "The baby isn't your only problem." His chest tightens. He reads it again, fingers hovering over the screen. No signature, no context. Just a blade slipped into the conversation. What would you do if that message hit your phone? Subscribe so you're never caught unprepared. Sterling pockets the phone, jaw tightening. He's already juggling a company on the verge of revolt, a daughter he barely dared to touch, and a public ready to tear him apart. Now someone else knows more than they should. The sedan turns onto Fifth Avenue. Caldwell Tower looms ahead, its glass walls glittering like armor. But Sterling knows armor cracks from the inside first. When he steps into the private lobby, security is doubled. Cameras track his every move. Even the receptionist won't meet his eyes. He rides the elevator up in silence, watching his reflection ghost across the darkened glass. At the penthouse, the silence is suffocating. He pours a drink, but the glass trembles in his hand. He sets it down untouched. On the counter lies a manila envelope. No one should have access to this floor without clearance. He tears it open. Inside are photos. Grainy, but unmistakable, Nia walking into the hospital, visibly pregnant. Time stamped. Weeks before today. On the back of the top photo, in black marker, "You waited too long. Now everyone will." His hand shakes. Whoever left this was inside his fortress. If you were in his place, would you fight or fold? Comment below, I want to see your answer. Sterling drops the photos onto the counter, his mind racing. Someone is orchestrating this. The baby is not just a scandal, it's leverage. And he doesn't know who's holding the other end of the rope. He looks out at the skyline, the city that once bent to him. For the first time in years, Sterling Cole doesn't feel untouchable. He feels hunted. And somewhere in the darkness of New York, someone is already planning the next move. Stay close, because what happens when the sun rises will change everything again. The city wakes restless. By the time the sun scrapes across Manhattan's skyline, Sterling Cole hasn't slept. The photos from the manila envelope still lie scattered across the counter of his penthouse kitchen, black and white proof that someone followed Nia for weeks before the birth. The marker on the back of the first one still taunts him. You waited too long. Now everyone will. He pours coffee with a steady hand that hides the storm inside. Below, the streets pulse with horns and brakes and vendors shouting morning deals, but up here the silence weighs heavier than glass and steel. He knows someone has breached the fortress he built, someone who understands that his greatest enemy isn't outside the tower walls, it's the truth he tried to erase. The baby's cry still echoes in his ears. The words he spoke in the hospital lobby, "I have a daughter," loop on every channel, dissected by anchors who never met him. He wonders if Nia is watching. He wonders if she regrets letting him near at all. His phone buzzes. This time, the message is longer. Your company isn't your problem anymore. She is. Protect her, or lose everything. No signature. No clue. Just pressure tightening around his chest. If a stranger could reach into your private life this easily, wouldn't you want to know what's coming before it happens? Subscribe now so you don't blink when the next blow lands. Sterling grabs his coat and heads for the door. His driver greets him with a clipped nod, but Sterling doesn't acknowledge him. He slides into the sedan, pulls the door shut, and says, "Lenox Hill." The hospital lobby is quieter now, cameras pushed to the sidewalks, reporters chasing fresher prey. But inside, the staff recognize him instantly. Eyes follow as he strides through the corridor. Some stare in judgment, others in curiosity, all of them aware they are watching a billionaire walk the line between fatherhood and ruin. Nia sits propped against her pillow, cradling the baby. The soft beeping of monitors fades as Sterling steps in. She doesn't look up. "You're here," she says flatly. "I needed to see her again." Nia doesn't argue. She doesn't hand the child to him either. She rocks the infant gently, as if shielding her from the weight of his presence. Sterling swallows. "Someone followed you. Took photos. Weeks before today." Finally, Nia lifts her eyes. Tired, sharp, unforgiving. "And now you're afraid for us?" "I should have been before," he admits. "You should have been human before," she corrects. The line cuts deep, but he doesn't flinch. He pulls the envelope from his coat and sets it on the table by the bed. They want me to believe you're in danger. Which means you are. Nia studies him, her gaze unreadable. Then do something real, Sterling. Not money. Not lawyers. Something real. He looks down at the baby, her tiny hand curling in sleep. For the first time, he feels the edge of responsibility dig under his skin like a hook he can't pull out. If you were in Nia's place, would you trust him now? Comment below, I want to see how you'd answer. Sterling leaves the room shaken. In the corridor, his phone buzzes again. A video file this time. He presses play. The footage is grainy, shaky, but unmistakable, Nia stepping onto a bus at night, clutching her belly, alone. The caption flashes in red letters, "You can't protect what you don't acknowledge." His blood runs cold. Whoever is behind this isn't just threatening him, they're watching her in real time. He orders his driver to circle the city, giving no destination. The car becomes a cocoon of dark glass while his mind spirals. Who stands to gain from this? Rivals on Wall Street? Board members sharpening knives? Someone from his past who remembers what he erased? The skyline blurs. He thinks of his father, the man who told him to never look back, to climb until the past disappeared under the horizon. That advice feels like a curse now, every step upward only making the fall harder. His driver finally asks, "Sir, where to?" Sterling exhales. Caldwell Tower. When he enters the building, the lobby feels colder than usual. Employees glance at him, then away. On the trading floor upstairs, screens glow blood red, stocks plunging, analysts dissecting his confession like vultures picking clean a carcass. In the boardroom, the directors wait. This time there's no shouting. Just silence, sharpened into something deadlier. One slides a resignation draft across the table. "Step down, Sterling. Save what's left of the company." He doesn't touch the paper. "You think replacing me will protect us? Whoever is behind this isn't after Caldwell Industries. They're after me. And they're using my family to do it." Another director leans forward. Then maybe stepping down is the only way to save them. Sterling meets every eye around the table. He sees greed, fear, ambition, but no loyalty. He realizes he is alone. If a man with billions can be cornered this easily, how safe do you think you are? Subscribe so you don't get blindsided when your own walls fall. He leaves without signing. In the elevator ride down, he grips the railing, feeling the tower sway beneath him like it never has before. His reflection stares back from the mirrored walls, and for the first time he doesn't recognize the man looking at him. When he returns to the hospital, Nia is gone. The bed is stripped, the monitors silent. Panic hits like a blow. He grabs the nearest nurse. "Where is she?" "Discharged," the nurse says. "Left with the baby an hour ago." Sterling's heart slams against his ribs. He calls her phone, straight to voicemail. He checks with security, no record of where she went. He bolts back to his car, orders the driver to comb every block near the hospital. Nothing. Back at the penthouse, another envelope waits. No return address. No fingerprints. Inside, one photo. Nia and the baby, leaving the hospital, caught in the frame from across the street. On the back, the same handwriting, "Now she's mine to watch." Sterling stares at the words until they blur. Someone has her. Someone wants him terrified. And it's working. If this moment shook you, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss the next move. He grips the photo so hard the edges cut his fingers. Blood dots the glossy surface, staining Nia's image. In the glass wall behind him, the city sparkles like nothing has changed. But Sterling Cole knows better. Everything has. And somewhere in that glittering sprawl, someone holds his daughter's fate in their hands. The city felt louder than usual, even from 40 stories up. Sterling Cole stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, watching headlights crawl along FDR Drive like veins pulsing with light. His hand tightened around the single photograph he'd stared at for hours, Nia and the baby leaving the hospital, grainy, caught by a lens he hadn't seen. On the back, "Now she's mine to watch." He had built towers that touched clouds, moved money through channels so complex no regulator could untangle them, and bent politicians with checks that looked like favors. But tonight, with that sentence staring back at him, he felt smaller than the cab lights crawling across asphalt below. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. He answered on instinct. Silence. Then a low voice, distorted. "She's safer with me than with you." Sterling's pulse hammered. "Where is she?" A pause, then, "Where you can't control her." The line went dead. He nearly smashed the phone against the glass but caught himself. That would solve nothing. If you were the one on the other end of this call, would you keep calm or lose control? Comment below, I want to see where you stand. He turned to the counter where the second envelope still lay. He hadn't told the board. He hadn't told security. He hadn't told Priya Shah, his COO, who was already carrying the weight of a market ready to collapse. He hadn't told anyone. Pride kept him silent, but pride was the same reason the walls were closing in now. Another buzz. A text this time, "Check your inbox." Clock's ticking. Sterling opened his laptop. A video waited. He clicked. Nia sat in a dim room, baby in her arms. Her eyes were wide, not with tears, but with fury. She looked directly into the lens. "This is on you," she said. "You should have protected us before it was too late." Sterling's breath caught. The clip ended abruptly. He rewound, studying every frame. No background identifiers. No obvious location. Just her, the child, and that unyielding stare. The message under the video burned, "Confess what you've buried, or she disappears." He slammed the laptop shut, chest heaving. They didn't want money. They didn't want shares. They wanted the truth he had locked away his entire life. If this happened to your family, would you confess everything or risk silence? Subscribe now so you don't miss the moment he decides. At dawn, he convened a private meeting with Priya in the corner of Caldwell Tower's boardroom. She looked tired but razor-sharp, her blouse crumpled from sleeping in the office. "You're bleeding credibility," she said before he could speak. "The market can forgive a secret child. It won't forgive lies stacked on lies. If there's more, tell me now." Sterling hesitated. Generations of silence pressed down on him. His father's voice echoed, "Don't ask. Don't answer. Keep moving." "There is," he said finally. Priya leaned in. "Then you need to say it before they weaponize it." "I can't," he whispered. "It would bury the company." "It's already burning," she snapped. "At least choose what turns to ash." He looked at her and realized she was the only ally he had left. He also realized if she knew everything, she might not stay that way. By mid-morning, journalists flooded the sidewalks outside Caldwell Tower. Anchors reported live with headlines blaring across the bottom of screens, "Where are Nia and the child? Who holds the billionaire accountable?" Sterling descended to the lobby, trailed by cameras even inside his own building. Security held them back, but the questions cut through. "Did you kidnap them? Are they in hiding? Do you deny threats against Nia Hart?" He didn't answer. He walked straight through the gauntlet, his silence feeding the fire. You're watching him sink deeper. Subscribe now, because what you'll see next could end a dynasty. That night, exhaustion dragged him into a restless sleep on the leather couch of his penthouse. He woke to the chime of the elevator. He wasn't expecting anyone. His security was supposed to lock the floor. He grabbed the nearest object, a glass paperweight, and stepped toward the sound. The doors opened with a soft hiss. A woman stood there, short coat damp with rain, eyes locked on him. Nia. She clutched the baby tight, jaw set. He froze. How? Don't speak, she snapped. You don't get to talk until you've listened. Her voice shook, but it wasn't weakness, it was fury balanced on exhaustion. She stepped inside, pressing the button to close the doors behind her. You think you're hunted, she said. You think someone's playing you. They are. But I'm not the one you need to be afraid of. I left because I had to protect her from you as much as from them. The baby whimpered. Sterling's stomach hollowed. You had power, Sterling. You could have shielded us before the world knew. Instead, you cared about your image until someone else used us as leverage. She set the carrier down on the counter, her eyes flashing. Now the choice isn't yours anymore. He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. I won't let you bury her like you buried your past. If you want to protect her, prove it, not to me, to her. To the world. He stared at her, throat dry. The words wouldn't come. For the first time, he wondered if confessing wasn't the end of him but the only beginning he had left. If you were her, would you give him another chance or shut him out forever? Comment your judgment below. Sterling looked at the child, small and innocent in the carrier, and felt the weight of every lie pressing down. Outside the glass walls, the city glittered indifferently. Inside, everything he built teetered on the edge. The elevator chimed again. Heavy footsteps echoed closer. Not security, too slow, too deliberate. Nia grabbed the carrier instinctively. Sterling's pulse spiked. The door to the penthouse swung open. A figure stepped inside, coat dripping rain, eyes cold. In his hand, another envelope. I warned you, the stranger said. Sterling's world narrowed to the envelope, the baby, and the walls closing around them. And for the first time, he realized the storm wasn't circling him anymore, it was inside his home. Stay here. Subscribe now, because what comes through that envelope will change everything you thought you knew. Rain ribboned down the penthouse windows in silver streaks, the city's glow smeared into trembling lines. The stranger stood just inside the open door, coat dripping, eyes flat as if he'd practiced being unreadable. He held the envelope like a verdict. Nia shifted the carrier closer to her leg, one hand on the handle, the other braced on the marble counter. Sterling felt the room narrow to 3 points, the envelope, the child, the man who said, I warned you. Put it down, Nia said, voice steady. The stranger set the envelope on the counter, exactly between them, as if drawing a boundary. You've been playing defense with headlines, he said, voice low. What's coming can't be spun. Who are you? Sterling asked. He offered a name that meant nothing, Rowan, and a card with no address. His gaze flicked to the carrier, then back to Sterling. Open it. Sterling slid a finger under the seal. Inside, photocopies of birth records from a parish office in Savannah, a yellowed marriage license with a different surname, Coles with an E, 2 black and white photos of a woman whose eyes matched his in a way that hurt. On the back of one photo, a neat note, your grandmother. The part your father paid to forget. Nia's breath sharpened. What is this? Rowan didn't blink. What they'll use if you don't use it first. Thunder shouldered the skyline. Sterling lifted another sheet, a memo chain between the board chair and a crisis firm, timestamps from last week, phrases circled in red, non-denial strategy, pressure resignation, seed paternity doubt online. A separate file, invoices from a private security vendor he recognized, dated the weeks Nia was followed. His stomach went cold. They hired the watchers, Rowan said, answering the reaction. Not to protect her. To control the story. To control you. Nia's hand tightened on the carrier handle. You knew this and let it happen. Rowan shook his head. I've been sending you warnings for days. He tilted his head at Sterling, doesn't read what won't flatter him. A flush climbed Sterling's neck. If you're on our side, why the threats? Why now she's mine to watch? Because fear moves you faster than principle, Rowan said. And you were out of time. If someone forced your hand like this, would you run or fight? Subscribe now, don't miss the next move. Sterling sifted deeper. Hospital stills. Street shots. A grainy clip dated a month ago, his mother entering a midtown bank with a safe deposit key, then leaving with an envelope identical to the one on his counter. Beneath, a caption in careful handwriting, she knows what he erased. He looked up. What do you want? Rowan's mouth barely moved. For you to stop hiding behind the company and stand in front of your family. For you to tell the whole truth before they drip it slowly and kill you by degrees. And if I don't? Then they'll make her a story instead of a person, Rowan said, a glance at the carrier. And they've done it before. The elevator chimed again. Sterling's security chief appeared, rain slicker unzipped, eyes sweeping the scene. Sir, we need you downstairs. Protesters breached the lobby. Police want you out the back. Rowan's face didn't change. Back doors are where they erase you. Nia slid the carrier onto her forearm, muscles trembling. Decide. Sterling felt it, one of those rare seconds when the world forks and never folds back. Behind him, the polite annihilation of a brand. Ahead, the harder road that didn't promise survival. He gathered the papers, slid them back into the envelope, and nodded to Nia. We're not going down the service hall. Security stiffened. Mr. Cole. Route us through the main lobby, Sterling said. And call the press pool. I'm speaking. If this choice scares you, stay with us. Subscribe before he steps out. They moved, Rowan a shadow at their flank. The elevator descended like a held breath. On the lobby level, the doors parted onto chaos, chants ricocheting off marble, camera lights strobing, a line of officers holding the crowd to the rope barriers. Heads turned. The noise surged. Mr. Cole, did you abduct Ms. Hart? Are you weaponizing a child for sympathy? Will you resign this week? Security formed a wedge. Nia kept the carrier tucked in tight, eyes straight ahead, her jaw a locked hinge. Sterling raised a hand and the sound dipped, the way a wave lowers before it breaks. I'll answer questions, he said. The microphones leapt. But first, listen. A hush opened by degrees. He found the live lens, the one feeding to a million hands. My family hid our own blood, he said, voice steady, every syllable a deliberate cut. He held up the old photo. They changed names, sealed records, paid for omissions. I benefited from that lie. I participated in it by silence. I won't anymore. A ripple moved through the room. The board chair's crisis plan would not cover this. The anchors at the curb blinked like they hadn't rehearsed for Ernest. If you want to destroy me for that, he said, do it. But you will not turn a mother and child into collateral. You will not discredit them with the same tools that built me. The crowd shifted. Not sympathetic, listening. Under the balcony, a woman in scrubs nodded once like she'd been waiting for someone at his altitude to say something human. If you think he should keep going, don't just watch, subscribe now. Questions flew, sharper now. Name the firm you hired. Name the directors. Will you testify? He answered what he could, the vendor name, the invoices, the plan to forward everything to the state attorney. He didn't offer absolution. He didn't beg. A voice cut through in a different register, clear, trained. Mr. Cole. A woman stepped forward, press pass clipped to her coat, Avery Klein, investigative reporter. We have sources alleging you concealed a prior child from college. Is that true? The lobby felt suddenly airless. Sterling looked at Nia. Her eyes didn't flinch. He looked at the cluster of cameras, then at the child asleep in a storm of light. He tasted copper, old fear. No, he said, and the word sounded wrong inside him, too clean. I didn't conceal a prior child. He let the next sentence burn on the way out. I am that concealed child's son. Silence. Then a scatter of confused murmurs. Avery's pen hesitated mid-scratch. My grandmother was cut from our story, he said. My father taught me that cutting was survival. I repeated the lesson until it reached this room. I'm done. The lobby absorbed it, the way hospitals absorb bad news, with a practiced quiet that doesn't pretend to be enough. Sterling lowered the photo. Now I'm taking Ms. Hart and our daughter out the front door. We will not be chased. He gestured to the police line. Help us leave like people. The sergeant studied him, measured the crowd, the cameras, the risk of pushing too hard. Then she nodded. Officers widened the lane. They walked. Every flash prickled his skin. Every breath was labor. He stayed half a step behind Mia, a small, deliberate correction from the man who always moved first. Outside, the rain cooled hot concrete. Sirens braided with traffic. A city bus hissed at the curb and a teenage boy recording on his phone muttered, "Yo." The ordinary world pushed against the cinematic one-and-one. If you were here, would you cheer or jeer? Be honest, comment below. They reached the car. Sterling opened the door for Nia, and only then did she look back at him like the audit had begun. She slid in, he followed. Rowan vanished into the crowd like a rumor that prefers the dark. They drove in silence, wipers scything. Sterling's phone vibrated. Priya, board calling an emergency vote at 5. They'll move without you. Another text, unknown, storage unit 314, Jackson Heights. Locker key in your mother's piano bench. A third, from Avery, I'll publish at 6. Tell your mother first. Pull over, he told the driver. We're making a stop. Nia turned. Where? Queens. They threaded the 59th Street Bridge, rain tapping the roof like impatient fingers. By Jackson Heights, the sky had thinned to a sullen gray, storefronts blinking neon open signs into puddles. The storage facility smelled like dust and old secrets. Sterling found Unit 314, knuckles tight around a key he'd collected 2 hours earlier from a piano bench he hadn't touched since childhood. The lock turned with a sticky click. They lifted the door. A metal shelf, a banker's box, a moth-eaten blanket with his family crest stitched faint as a ghost. He tugged the box down, set it on the concrete, and pried it open. Inside, letters his grandmother had written and never mailed. A church program with her maiden name. A school portrait of a boy he recognized only because he'd seen that stubborn tilt of the head in the mirror for years, his father, aged 10, standing next to a woman the family never named. At the bottom, a notarized affidavit his grandmother had filed and then withdrawn, stating paternity and dates that collapsed the official timeline. Nia knelt beside the box. Her finger brushed the edges of the affidavit. She tried to speak. They paid her not to, Sterling said, hearing the hoarseness, not fixing it. And when money didn't work, shame did. He photographed everything. He sent the files to Priya, to Avery, to a lawyer whose number he hadn't dialed since a merger war in Chicago became an ethics lecture he deserved. He sent one more, to himself, because pieces of his past had a way of disappearing when they didn't flatter the present. Subscribe if you need the receipts before the spin starts. The baby stirred, a soft, urgent sound. Nia lifted her, swayed instinctively. The storage unit felt too small for the world suddenly expanding inside Sterling's chest and cracking at the same time. He thought of the emergency vote at Caldwell Tower, the neat folder labeled Succession, the men who would serve him up like a trophy to buy one more quarter of stability. He also thought of his grandmother's handwriting, of the way the loops dipped when she wrote words that hurt. Take us home, Nia said quietly. He nodded. On the drive back, the city blurred into shadowed lanes and bright wet reflectors. For the first time, he didn't picture his building as a citadel. He pictured it as a place his daughter would someday visit and decide whether to enter. In the garage, his security detail swarmed the sedan with clipped radios and faces that practiced neutral. Priya met them by the elevator, tablet in hand, hair pulled back like she'd given up on appearances. "You're late," she said. "They're already in the boardroom." "Let them wait," he answered. "They won't. Then they can vote while I do something that matters." She studied him, then the bundle in Nia's arms, then the envelope under his. Something in her shoulders shifted. "Then do it fast," she said. "And do it clean." Upstairs, the penthouse felt like a stage half-struck. Nia set the baby's carrier by the window, rain streaks twitching across the skyline. Sterling placed the envelope on the piano, the wood drinking the damp from the paper like it had been waiting. He dialed his mother. She answered on the second ring, voice brittle, cautious. "Sterling. I found her letters," he said. "I found her." Silence. Then the smallest exhale. "I told your father it would come due. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you safe," she said, and the sentence sounded like a wound that never closed. "And because I was a coward." He didn't waste apologies on a phone line. "I'm going to the board," he said. "After that, I'm going to the press again. If they come for you." "They already did, years ago," she said. "Do what you should have done then." He ended the call. The clock on the oven read 4:41. 19 minutes to a vote engineered to erase him. He looked at Nia. She wasn't crying. She wasn't forgiving. She was measuring. "If you walk out that door," she said, "don't come back with words." He nodded once. "I'll come back with proof. If he fails, you'll watch it here first. Subscribe now." He took one step toward the elevator and stopped at the sound behind him, a soft, digital chime from the piano bench he'd just closed. He lifted it again. Another key lay inside, taped under the lid. A sticky note, new ink, for when they say you forged it. Beside it, a small flash drive labeled with a date from 27 years ago. Nia's eyes found his. "Someone wanted you to win. Or wanted me to have no excuses," he said. He pocketed the drive. The elevator doors slid open. He stepped in, the envelope under his arm like a fragile weapon, and hit the button for the boardroom floor. In the mirrored wall, he didn't see the man from last week. He saw a version who could be worth his daughter's last name. The doors began to close, then jammed and reopened. A hand slid between them. Avery Klein stepped in, breath fast, phone already recording. "Off the record only works for men who earned it," she said. "You haven't yet." "Then don't turn that off," he said. "You're coming with me. Would you walk into that room with him, or watch from the hall? Comment below. And if you want to see what gets said around that table, subscribe. You're about to hear it without the filters." The boardroom lights burned too bright. Sterling Cole stood at the head of the glass table where he had once ruled with silence, but tonight every reflection seemed to accuse him. The directors stared back, their pens lined neatly like blades. The monitors on the far wall rolled live footage of anchors replaying his words at the hospital, "I have a daughter." The ticker at the bottom of the screen ticked down billions lost in market value. He set the envelope and the flash drive on the table. No theatrics, no flourish. Just proof, heavy enough to crack marble. The chairman leaned forward. "You've destabilized the company. Investors are fleeing. Step down, or we'll vote you out." Sterling scanned the table. These were the same men and women who once praised his iron grip, the ones who toasted him in Chicago hotels and Los Angeles board retreats. Now their eyes gleamed with survival, not loyalty. He opened the affidavit, held it so every pair of eyes could see. This is the part of my history my family paid to erase. Letters, photos, records. My grandmother tried to tell the truth, and they silenced her. I repeated the silence. That ends tonight. A rustle of discomfort spread through the room. You think exposing your blood makes you strong? The chairman asked. Sterling's voice cut sharp. I think it makes me unblackmailable. You can't trap a man who already confessed. If you were him, would you admit everything or protect the mask? Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens when power meets daylight. One director tapped his pen in irritation. You tainted the brand beyond repair. From the corner, Avery Klein spoke. Her phone was up, capturing everything. The brand was always tainted. The difference is now the public sees it. The chairman snapped, this is not a press conference. Sterling didn't let him finish. It became one when you hired men to follow a woman carrying my child. You made her and my daughter pawns in your game. I won't play it anymore. He pushed the flash drive toward them. Everything's on here. I've already sent copies to the Attorney General. If you think pushing me out will save you, you'll be next on the line. A silence heavier than lead settled. Directors glanced at one another, calculating. Survival was their only currency. By the time Sterling left the tower, chants from Lexington Avenue rose like smoke. Protesters waved signs that read Fraud Father and Truth Matters. Some screamed for his resignation, others for justice for Nia and the child. Police lines wavered under the pressure of the crowd. Sterling walked through the lobby, face impassive. Cameras chased his steps, reporters hurled questions. Did you kidnap them? Are you hiding Nia Hart? Will you be indicted? He kept moving. His silence was gasoline on the fire, but tonight he needed it. You're watching him sink deeper. Subscribe now, because the next blow might bury him for good. At the penthouse, Nia sat in the living room, the baby nestled against her chest. Her eyes tracked him as he entered. No softness, no relief, only judgment. Well, she asked. They'll vote again, he said, unbuttoning his coat. But now they know I'll burn the house down before I let them bury her. Nia rocked the child slowly. You still think this is about leverage? It's not. It's about whether you're a father or a fraud. The baby whimpered, and Sterling reached out. This time, she didn't stop him. His hand hovered, then settled lightly on the child's back. Warmth pulsed through his palm. If you were her, would you trust him now, or keep the wall up? Comment below, I want to see what you'd choose. Later that night, Sterling stood at the piano, the flash drive balanced on the keys. The rain had slowed, dripping in irregular taps against the glass. He thought of his grandmother's letters, of his father's silence, of the long chain of omissions that had led to this storm. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered. A whisper, truth doesn't belong to you anymore. The line went dead. He opened a text. A single image, the storage unit door yawning wide, the box empty. The caption, you're always late. Sterling's grip tightened. Someone had already stolen what he thought was safe. If this appeared on your phone, would you crumble or fight? Subscribe now, you'll see his next move first. He called Priya. Voicemail. He called Avery. No answer. He dialed security. Nothing. A pulse of dread shot through him. Whoever was moving against him had cut deeper than headlines. Behind him, Nia's voice carried. They won't stop. You have to decide if you're going to be a man worth protecting, or just a man hiding. He turned. Her eyes reflected the city lights, sharp and unyielding. The baby shifted in her arms, small face scrunching in half-sleep. I will protect you, he said. Her reply was ice. Then prove it. The lights flickered once, then again. The penthouse fell dark. The baby cried out. Sterling's pulse spiked. He moved toward the carrier, fumbling in the dark. His ears caught the faint sound of footsteps across marble. A voice, calm and close, "You thought the documents gave you power. They give us power." Sterling froze, every muscle drawn tight. In the dark, the city kept moving, sirens wailing, taxis honking, the world oblivious. But inside the penthouse, the war he tried to contain was no longer abstract. It was here, breathing in his home. Stay with this story. Subscribe now, because when the lights return, nothing will be the same. Darkness pressed against the glass like a second night. Sterling Cole stood frozen, one hand on the baby's carrier, the other lifted in a clumsy shield. He could hear breathing that wasn't his. A heel slid across marble. The city moaned outside, sirens, wind through avenues, indifferent to the blackout swallowing his home. "Nia," he whispered. "I'm here," she answered, voice low, steady. The baby's soft cry rose, then steadied as Nia's hand found her. "Don't move." A phone face lit for half a second across the room, cold blue on a jawline, a cheekbone, and vanished. Then a voice floated from the dark, composed in a way that made Sterling's skin crawl. "You should have taken the back hallway." "Show yourself," Sterling said. The lights snapped on. Rowan stood beside the piano, raincoat gone, suit dry, expression neutral as a surgeon's. Two men in maintenance uniforms flanked him, no fear in their posture, just the quiet certainty of people who believed the floor already belonged to them. Nia's eyes knifed to Rowan. "You." Rowan didn't flinch. "You needed to move faster." He nodded once to the men. They stayed where they were. "The board planned to bleed you by leak. I accelerated reality. Control the story or the story controls you. You broke into our home," Sterling said. "You terrorized her." Rowan's gaze flicked to the child, softened for a heartbeat, then reset. The point was not terror. The point was urgency. He raised a hand before Sterling could answer. "And before you ask, no, I don't work for your chairman." "Then who?" Nia asked. "The person who gets hurt if this dies in committee," Rowan said. "Priya Shah." Sterling's breath snagged. "Priya." Rowan nodded, almost regretful. "When the board hired a firm to tail Nia, she came to me off book. Not to protect you, to protect the child. She wanted leverage to smash the plan if you folded. She hired me to scare you into speed." He lifted a small thumb drive, placed it on the piano. "Everything recorded. Every invoice. Every directive. She also knew you wouldn't listen to a warning unless it bruised. If someone you trusted did this to save you, would you forgive them?" Comment below, no filters. Sterling's phone buzzed. "Priya, are you safe? Don't trust security. Meet me at the AG's office in 30 minutes. Bring proof and Nia." Another message over the top from the chairman, "Final vote in 20. Don't show and you're finished." Nia squared her shoulders. "We're leaving. With the child. No more shadows." Rowan nodded once, almost a bow. "Take the freight elevator. Your security chief is compromised. The board paid him to stall you if you run." Nia's jaw tightened. "Why help us at all?" Rowan's mask cracked a fraction. "Because I was a secret someone erased once. Because this time, the secret has a heartbeat." He stepped back. The maintenance men melted toward the service corridor. "You'll find cops at your door in 3 minutes. Walk before they're told to delay you. Stay. The next choice decides everything." They moved. Sterling grabbed the envelope, the flash drive, the photos. Nia lifted the carrier, the elevator swallowed them with the hum of a held breath. Down in the private garage, the midnight air bit clean and metallic. Sterling's driver jolted at the sight of them and threw open the rear door. "Downtown," Sterling said. "Attorney General's office." They shot through empty lanes, under bridges that held the rumble of late trains, past bodegas still open for the night shift. Manhattan's bones showed when the city slept: steel, rivets, seams. Sterling watched streetlights rake across the carrier's handle, the baby's blanket, Mia's knuckles. In the front seat, the driver's radio crackled with sudden instructions to reroute, orders from nowhere, everywhere. "Don't deviate," Sterling said. "If they box us in," the driver asked. "Don't let them." The car broke onto Center Street. Government buildings rose like stone verdicts. Floodlights bleached the steps. Officers watched from behind barriers with faces too tired to guess motives. Sterling opened the door and felt the night clutch his suit with cold hands. Inside, the lobby guard lifted a palm. "Closed." "Call your on-call," Sterling said. "Now." The guard met his eyes, read something there, and picked up the phone. "You'd want the line open for you. Subscribe so you don't miss the door opening." The on-call deputy arrived with hair uncombed, tie askew, a legal pad under his arm. He recognized Sterling, he recognized the look on Mia's face more. "You're either here to stall or to bleed." "Which?" "To bleed truth," Sterling said. "Before someone else weaponizes it." They sat in a conference room where fluorescent lights made no promises. Sterling laid out the letters, the notarized affidavit, the invoices, the security contracts, the photos of men who shouldn't have followed a pregnant woman. He slid the flash drive across the table like an apology that finally learned a language. The deputy skimmed fast, then stopped. "This is bigger than paternity," he said. "This is corporate tampering, private surveillance, witness intimidation." Mia spoke for the first time since they'd left the penthouse. "They tried to turn my child into a tool." The deputy nodded, pen scratching. "We'll need statements. We'll need chain of custody on the storage unit." "It was emptied," Sterling said. "But I copied everything." "You'll swear to that," the deputy said. "And you," he looked at Mia, "will decide how visible you want to be. We can shield some of this." Mia met his gaze. "I won't be a silhouette." "If you were her, would you hide or stand up?" "Choose, then comment." The deputy rose. "I'll wake the AG." "Wake them with cameras," Avery said from the doorway. Sterling turned. She stepped in with rain still silvering her hair, phone recording. "You told me to come along," she said. "I did more than that." She angled the phone. "We're live." "Turn it off," the deputy snapped. "Leave it," Sterling said. "People buried this once. Not again." Avery pointed the lens at Mia. "You okay?" "I will be when they stop pretending she's a headline," Mia said, adjusting the blanket around the child. "She's a person." The deputy motioned a PR staffer, a clerk, a guard. Footsteps multiplied. Doors opened. The AG herself stepped in with coffee in one hand, phone in the other, eyes so awake they looked like judgment and mercy stitched together. "Mr. Cole," she said. "Ms. Hart." She clocked the carrier, the envelope, the camera. "If you're here to wage a PR war, take it outside. If you're here to confess and cooperate, sit." Sterling sat. Mia sat. Avery faded to the edge without killing the feed. "Start," the AG said. Sterling started. He gave names, dates, payments. He didn't smooth verbs. He didn't pad nouns. He spoke like a man who had grown tired of hearing his voice do anything except tell the thing plainly. He admitted to silence. He admitted to benefiting. He admitted he was late. When he finished, the room felt taller. The AG studied him, then Mia. "We'll unspool this," she said. "You'll both have protection until we know who's moving pieces against you." Protection? Nia asked. Details, the AG said. You'll hate it and you'll need it. The baby made a small noise, half yawn, half complaint. The AG's face softened by a degree. Get them upstairs, she told the deputy. And get me a judge on standby. If you think consequences should finally stick, stay with this. Subscribe now. By dawn, filings were drafted. By 7, subpoenas were queued. At 8, the AG's office issued a statement. By 9, the story had shed its tabloids and entered the record. Caldwell Tower's phones strangled themselves in rings. The chairman called an emergency session. Priya texted from a blocked number, "They'll push you at 10. Bring the camera." Sterling looked at Nia. "I have to go." She met him with eyes that were not permission and not refusal, just truth. "Bring back action, not eloquence." "I will," he said. He didn't kiss the baby's head. He wanted to, he knew better than to turn a camera into a cradle. He squeezed Nia's shoulder. Then he and Avery left, escorted by 2 plainclothes officers who might have been carved from courthouse stone. The car cut back uptown through a city waking to outrage and coffee. Construction crews hammered new floors into a skyline built on old secrets. Sterling watched scaffolding scrape clouds and thought of inheritances, money, silence, fear. He'd inherited all 3. He intended to break at least one. Caldwell Tower glinted in sun that made every smear obvious. The lobby had been scrubbed of protesters and filled with suits. The elevator ride to the boardroom floor felt like drowning in a vertical river. When the doors opened, the directors were already seated, faces hard as fixtures. "We'll spare you the speech," the chairman said. "Vote to remove." Second. A show of hands, rehearsed. Priya stood at the wall, unsmiling. Avery's phone was up. The officers took positions like punctuation. Before the chairman could finish his sentence, the boardroom doors swung again. The AG's deputy stepped in with 2 investigators and a stack of papers thick enough to be a sound when he dropped them on the table. "This meeting is being recorded," he said. "We have warrants for communications related to surveillance of Ms. Hart, attempts to suppress material evidence, and financial disbursements to private contractors." One director went pale. Another reached for water with a hand that failed its training. The deputy turned to Sterling. "You're free to leave. Not from consequences, but from this room's theater for today." Sterling looked at Priya. She didn't smile, but her shoulders lost a fraction of weight. She turned to the chairman. "I resign my role in crisis coordination," she said loudly. "And I'll testify to every directive I saw that targeted Ms. Hart." The chairman sputtered. "You'll ruin us." "No," she said. "We ruined ourselves. Would you clean house or cling to rot? Subscribe, watch the cleanup or the collapse." Sterling didn't gloat. He didn't bow. He simply walked out with Avery and the officers, leaving the glass temple to eat itself with paper. Downstairs, the sidewalk smelled like rain and warm concrete. Reporters surged. He raised a hand once, not for silence this time, but for space to breathe. "I won't hold a podium today," he said. "I've already said enough. The rest will go where it should have gone at the start, into court, not into opinion. Ms. Hart and our daughter aren't props. Leave them alone." He didn't wait for the questions. He stepped away, toward the curb, and saw them across the street, Nia, flanked by 2 protection officers, the baby's face hidden under a sunshade. She wasn't smiling. She was there. That was enough. Like mercy, it ached. He crossed when the light changed, the crowd parting in murmurs and cell phone cameras. Cars hissed across wet tar. A vendor shouted about bagels like the city had never learned his name. Nia didn't speak first. Neither did he. The baby hiccuped and reset the world's priorities. "I gave them everything," he said finally. "Don't give me promises," she said. Give me a pattern. He nodded. I'll build one. Brick by brick, she said. Brick by brick, he echoed. If you think he'll keep building, follow it. Subscribe so you see the quiet work. A car door thumped somewhere behind them. The officers adjusted their stance. Avery stood at the edge of the curb, phone lowered for once, eyes human again. Sterling looked at the tower rising over his shoulder, at the courthouse visible in the distance, at the river glinting like a cut the city kept pretending wasn't there. Redemption wasn't a speech. It was paperwork and diapers, hearings and night feedings, testimony and apologies that learned to stop asking for applause. The light flipped again. The crowd flowed. A gust tugged a loose page from the envelope under his arm. He caught it before the wind could carry it away. He turned to Nia. Lunch that isn't a camera. She thought about it longer than pride could stand, then said, we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a start. He held the street open as she wheeled the carrier through. The city swallowed them both without ceremony. Somewhere far uptown, a crane swung steel into the sky. Somewhere downtown, a clerk stamped a case number that would not disappear this time. Sterling Cole chose to walk, not ride, and to carry his own envelope. He had spent a lifetime buying exits, today he earned his feet. Stay. The next chapters are quieter, and they matter more.